Turner, the rainbow is worth 3. Jonathan Taylor having a monster game.
Joseph Newgarden takes him down to the white line. They battle for the lead at 3.
Richardson on a design run. Touchdown! I-N-D-Y.
This is the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, and Jeff.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome into a Tuesday here at 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. James Boyd, Kevin Bowen, and Mark Dykton, along with Jeff Rickard here. And almost feels like a big hangover day today, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know how you guys felt this morning when you got up and you're walking into work and you're getting ready to go in. It's just a weird kind of cloudy feeling. We've been going. We had the month of May. We had the Pacers, and we were all hyped up of the Pacers, and everything was great. And we get all the way to Game 7, and we all know how it turned out, and we'll talk about that throughout the day. But just a little temperature check in the room here. How you doing today, JB?
I'm doing pretty good. Like you said, rough ending to the season for the Pacers, but at the same time, I'm choosing to look at just the run itself. Had a chance to read Tyrese Halliburton's thoughts last night, which I'm sure we'll get into, and when he said, I do it all over again for this city and for this team, tip of the cap to that young man.
We're all rooting for him to heal as quickly and as fully as possible. There's no question about that. Kevin Bowen, I know you've been going from football season to the month of May through Pacers in Game 7, and I know we got a lot to talk about today, and I'm fired up to talk about the optimistic side of the Pacers in the future and where they go from here and how great this season was. But KB, temperature check on you today. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I was, ready to turn the page, and then yes, when you read the Tyrese Halliburton statement, then you start asking for Kleenexes again. Once you read that, that was the probably most un-PR statement I've ever seen. It was candid, it was emotional. We can definitely share some of those thoughts on it. But yeah, Tyrese Halliburton surgery sounded like late yesterday, and Rick Carlisle, he will join us coming up at 8 o'clock. So Tuesdays at 8 with Rick Carlisle once again continues, and we greatly appreciate him once again making time for us here to put a bow tie on what is one of the great Indiana sports stories we've ever seen.
Yeah, I just want to put out that Rick does this of his own volition. He chooses to speak to the morning show every Tuesday. You guys do a great job. You've continued doing that all season long. I've tried to stay out of the way because you guys have a great thing going with him, and I have so much respect and admiration for Coach Carlisle and what he does. Just to come on here and share the journey and kind of, for lack of a better term, an audio journal of this Pacers season, and he's been there every Tuesday and sometimes after every game if the Tuesday didn't work out, and it's been amazing. It's just another side of Rick Carlisle that is just this, to me, Hall of Fame coach that was probably worth a couple of wins in the playoffs, just having him over on the bench. And, with he and Kevin Pritchard and all the things they've been able to do over there and the great staff that they have, how do you not love this franchise, Kevin? How do you not love this franchise?
I think I said it, I don't know if it was after the Cavs series and the Knicks series, but just kind of expressed a thank you to Rick. And yeah, I guess I am repeating myself, but for those that missed that, NBA and NFL coaches don't do this. They don't come on these shows, A, for free, B, weekly. And how about Rick did it how many times? Twice a week throughout the playoffs when they had clinched their respective series throughout. And he gives us 20 minutes on a game day. And, I mean, what was it? Was it Golden State this year where he's like, yeah, I'll come on at like 9:30, I mean, still 6:30 out there. He's popping on here every single week. So really appreciate him continuing to do that. And, I don't want to speak for all of us, but it's probably the thing I get asked about the most outside of the studio are those segments with Rick and just how much people really appreciate listening. And, I mean, you're talking about fans from youth coaches. It doesn't matter. I think people have really grown to love that segment. So one final time here to put a bow tie on the 24-25 season, Rick Carlisle, 8 o'clock this morning.
And I think, JP, one of the things that I've appreciated about it the most being in this room and listening to Coach is, yes, there's always the basketball talk and what's going on and what the situation is and how we bounce back from last night or we keep the momentum going, whatever it is. But he's been terrific about kind of letting you get to know Rick Carlisle just a little bit, too. It's not just X's and O's. And we've learned so much about the man. And just it's just an amazing 15, 20 minutes every week.
Yeah, I think the relationship helps because he dunks on us once a week as well. And
yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
I think there
Like
might
Siakam dunk on Jalen Williams. Game
yeah.
6.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to get too lovey-dovey or sappy when Rick is locked in. But
From a listener standpoint, though, it's terrific.
yeah, I'm just
They don't
saying,
care about the dunk.
Yeah,
No.
like he's they actually look forward to it, I think, and they tell us, me and Kevin. That's one of the things I get too, Kevin. Out and about, they'll tell me, hey, make sure you're on your P's and Q's for Rick, on Tuesdays, and so. Excited to hear from him today. I would expect more perspective just because the season is over, that incredible run, and then from there we'll see what else we can kind of dig ourselves into when it comes to the conversation with the coach. But overall, like I said, Tyrese's statement, the thoughts about the season, it is, a bit weird because the injury changes so much, and there's a lot of decisions I think that are now a little bit cloudier than before, but still, overall, I love Tyrese's statement. It was the most Tyrese statement ever because, like you said, Kevin, not a PR move. And there were, high moments, low moments, curse words, scripture at the end. And I was like, this is the perfect kind of imperfect that he usually is. And I appreciated him kind of getting rid of some of the cliches. He was like, dude, this stinks. My foot feels like dead weight right now. People keep telling me I'm going to come back stronger. And he did say that's the plan, but he's like, it's a cliche. You don't want to hear that at the moment. So just having that rawness, and you can tell it wasn't necessarily written by somebody who might have the best grammar and knows where all the commas go. It was good to see.
Yeah, and if you just want a raw, unfiltered look at kind of what must have been going through his mind over and over and over the last 24 hours, I thought that post was exactly what it is going on.
Yeah, and I guess just a snippet or two. Again, it was announced yesterday by the Pacers early evening that he would have surgery out in New York. Dr. Martin O'Malley, the surgeon there, he is pretty much the go-to athlete. Foot, ankle, Achilles. He's done pretty much all the notable ones. Jason Tatum, for example, he did last month. He's a Team USA doctor, Brooklyn Nets.
Yep. Kevin Durant as well. Brianna Stewart as well. So I'm just naming some prominent athletes too. By the way, Brianna Stewart and Kevin Durant, I believe they won they were all NBA, all WNBA, MVPs, all that stuff after the Achilles. So he's in the best hands in the world, like you said.
And in
Kevin.
Durant's case, certainly older than what Ty is at the age of 25. Yep. James Wiseman, Isaiah Jackson from a Pacers standpoint. But just one of the snippets here from Halliburton. He said this, and honestly, right now, torn Achilles and all, I don't regret it. I do it again and again after that, to fight for the city and my brothers for the chance to do something special. He added this. He goes, Indy, I'm sorry. If any fan base doesn't deserve this, it's y'all. But together, we're going to fight like hell to get back to this very spot and get over this hurdle. I don't doubt for a second that y'all have my back, and I hope you guys know that I have yours. I think Kobe said it best when in this same situation. There are far greater issues, challenges in the world than a torn Achilles. Stop feeling sorry for yourself, find the silver lining, and get to work with the same belief, same drive, and same conviction as ever. That is exactly right, and I will do everything in my power to get back right.
I think the thing that jumps out to me of that statement is how many athletes put the city that they're playing for first in their thoughts. How about that? It's not about, hey, I got a big road in front of me. Yeah, that stuff was all there, but it was clearly wrapped into, man, you guys don't deserve this. You're the one on your back right now, getting ready to have, he wrote that just after surgery, I suppose. And the first thing he says is, you guys don't deserve this, man. That's crazy in this day and age.
Yeah, I felt like getting up and pounding my chest after hearing that. And that's Ty. That's the Tyrese that we've known, or at least I've known since he got here, back in, February 2022 when they made the trade for him. And I remember the first day he got here, he was heartbroken about the Kings trade, and he was telling us about how he wanted so badly to turn that franchise around, and it really hurt him that he didn't get that opportunity. And you look up 3+ years later, and you had that opportunity here. You did turn this franchise around. You did give this city a lot of hope, a lot of joy, a lot of memories, not only just this season, but even last year and as they were building this thing. So he's been as candid as he's been in that post since day one, which makes him probably one of the most unique athletes I've ever covered, because usually they're not that vulnerable. They're not that real. They're just not. And he is. He kind of breaks the mold. And I always say he breaks the fourth wall. He will break the fourth wall a lot more than other athletes to kind of let you in, and give you some authenticity that you're not maybe expecting. And I always appreciate that about Ty.
All right, we'll talk about that all day long. We'll talk about what's in immediate future in the next season for the Indiana Pacers, and also some of the decisions they have to make long-term as well. We've got a Fever game later on tonight. We get ready to go full into summertime mode here, but not without a lot of great discussion about one of the most entertaining, fun, and easy-to-like programs we've seen in a long time in the Indiana Pacers. We'll do it all next as we continue at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
95 and 107.5 The Fan.
Good morning and welcome into a Tuesday here at the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, Jeff. Mark Dykeman on the ones and twos. We'll start off with news from the Indiana Pacers. We all watched it in Game 7 as Tyrese Halliburton goes down early in the first quarter with a season-ending Achilles injury, obviously in Game 7 of the NBA Finals, but he will now have to rehab for the next 12 months, Kevin Bowen. He had surgery yesterday in New York. You mentioned Dr. Martin O'Malley, the best in the business, performed the surgery, and his stent to get back begins today.
Mark, does he need the Aaron Rodgers treatment?
What does that entail?
Well, didn't Aaron Rodgers get back for week 1?
Oh, that. I thought you were talking about going into like a cave of darkness or something.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie.
Getting
For
his
a second
thoughts
there, I
together.
was like,
There's so many different ways you can go on that one.
I don't want Tyrese Halliburton to replicate anything that Aaron Rodgers did, to be quite honest. Do the exact opposite.
By the way, Tyrese Halliburton is undefeated against the Bears lifetime.
by the way.
Just throwing that
I
out.
don't get that one.
Because he's never played the Bears. I'm just
Oh.
giving the Bears and you a little slam dunk because of Aaron Rodgers.
We need like
there.
a laugh button.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tyrese is not playing next season. For anybody who threw that out there, I know they haven't officially said that, but my thinking is there is no way on God's green earth you allow him to even try to come back next season. For context here, Kevin Durant did not play the following season after he tore his in the finals 2019. And just not only Tyrese, I don't expect to see Jason Tatum. I don't expect to see Damian Lillard. Like, they're too valuable. And honestly, you played the risk already of him playing, and he said he wouldn't regret it and would do it all over again, and I understand all of that. But it's like at this point, okay, well, you lost, that opportunity when you went down, and now everyone should just prioritize his long-term health, which in my opinion will be making sure that you're not rushing back for, playing in some play-in tournament or something like that. Or even if you do make the playoffs without him, what for? He's going to ramp up playing the playoffs next year? Like, no, he's done. So
Well, and he just battled a ton of leg injuries this year.
Exactly.
Go back to the Olympics and the
I just,
hamstring injury.
we have our optimism as fans,
No,
but it's
no,
like,
no,
I'm just letting you all know now, he is not playing next year.
I think it's a very fair and good point to bring up, James. And we should mention, too, on your own roster right now, Isaiah Jackson and James Wiseman, both of them are in months 8 and 9 removed from their respective Achilles surgeries from the same doctor. And, there's been zero sign of them, getting back to playing basketball.
Right.
There was no discussion, obviously, of that as well. So, yes, it is the unfortunate nature to it. Again, Ty had a statement, and we'll continue to share some thoughts on that. And Rick Carlisle will join us here coming up at the top of the hour.
We also discussed just how much basketball he's played in the last 18 months. It's like,
he's played a lot.
as much as you don't want to say the injury could be a good thing, he needs to rest and kind of get back to himself because
he was a prominent player on Team USA the summer prior.
Right.
Remember
Right.
out in Thailand during the World Cup. So yeah,
those legs have a lot of wear on them right now.
I was gonna say, about two years basically of straight basketball. So good point, Mark.
Speaking of basketball, later on tonight, Indiana Fever will play on the road against the Seattle Storm. That one will tip at 10 p.m. We'll have the pregame show for you beginning at 9:45 here on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan. Fever trying to bounce back from a loss in Las Vegas, in which Caitlin Clark has not been playing well the last 2 games. She returned from injury, had a terrific game, really struggling from three-point range and struggling with the turnovers the last 2 games, James.
Yeah, she's got to be better for them, bottom line. And I think Seattle's been playing pretty good basketball as of late with Skylar Diggins and others on that roster. So she's not going to make any excuses. She knows what she has to do, which is knock down shots, take care of the basketball, and get this Fever team kind of back on track.
Yeah, you say others. Erica Wheeler has played a pretty prominent role for Seattle.
I did forget about Erica, yes.
Mackenzie Holmes actually is on their roster. IU's leading scorer after battling some injuries early in her career. In non-Caitlin Clark Fever news, I'm a little concerned on the Dewana Bonner front. This is now 2 weeks where she has been away from the team on the floor. She has not had a very consistent or productive role, first starting, then moved to the bench. So I don't know, just something to keep an eye on here. But yeah, Fever 1.5 point favorite tonight. I believe WTHR, along with, of course, our airwaves.
And speaking of the WNBA, the first ballots have been released for the WNBA All-Star Game. No surprise that Caitlin Clark leads all voting. But talk about her effect, James. 8 of the top 40 players in voting are Indiana Fever players.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by it. I would expect Caitlin Clark, obviously, to be an all-star this year, along with Leah Boston, possibly Kelsey Mitchell as well. But yeah, to see Lexi Hull getting some love and others it just makes sense. They're, the Caitlin lovers love everyone else on the Fever as well. So that is the Caitlin Clark effect in full force.
That's an all-star game here.
Yeah, it's
in
coming
less
up
than
in
a
July.
month.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm so glad you actually said that because I'll be working that All-Star weekend, and I kind of forgot that it was here for a while.
Less
I
than a
did get that
month.
email, yeah. So your boy will be not sleeping that entire weekend.
James
which
is
will be
heading to the
fun.
airport just to go right back.
Yeah.
downtown.
When do you ever sleep?
I mean, not much. I went to the movies last night
See?
in like 10 p.m. So yeah, I'm off this week from the Athletics, so my sleep schedule's a little crazy.
All right. Also, Major League Baseball last night. We'll start to focus on that a little bit more over the next several weeks. Cincinnati Reds get another big game, Kevin, from our guy, Ellie De La Cruz. A home run, a triple, 3 RBI, and they beat the Yankees over at home down in Cincinnati 6-1.
And the debut of Chase Burns coming up later today, so very much looking forward to that as well. Yes, Reds playing very good baseball.
All right. St.
Cubs
Louis,
or not?
Yeah, St. Louis Cardinals beat the Cubs by a score of 8-2. That was in St. Louis. Alec Burleson and Brendan Donovan broke it open in the 5th inning. Each of them had a 2-run home run there, and they win it by a score of 8-2. What's going on with your baseball team right now?
Well, they've been without their top 2 pitchers for a month and a half, and the offense is starting to kind of lull a little bit. So they're ripe for the picking right now. Kevin was worried that the Reds aren't making up any ground in the NL Central. Now's the time to do it.
All
'Cause
right.
They're struggling.
Anything else you want to throw in, KB, that has been on your mind here?
Well, the NBA draft is tomorrow, as wild as that
No
sounds.
first-round pick for the Pacers, though.
No, but we should mention the Drew Holiday trade. Late last night, Drew Holiday to the Trailblazers. Anthony Simons, the big name, coming back. For those that aren't maybe diehard NBA fans, I don't know how much the Simons name will resonate. He is a great scorer, young guard for the Trailblazers. And so he is now off to Boston. Of course, Boston is dealing with Jason Tatum's injury situation.
Yep.
There's been a lot of talk about, will they blow some of it up? And clearly they're doing a little bit of that. So, yeah, Drew
It shed
Holiday.
a ton of money in salary cap.
That's the
Yeah.
reason
by
for
doing that
Boston to
move.
do that, right?
But yeah, and Simons can light it up, like you said.
Yeah, he can fill it up in a hurry. Now, I do think, and I don't know, maybe we have this conversation later in the week, maybe coming up in July. I am not, as much as obviously the Pacers have a huge question mark for next year. Are you guys sold on anybody in the East?
No.
No. It's gonna be a
Everyone's got questions.
I mean, like,
complete coin toss, I feel
Who
like.
is the favorite in the East? I think it's a fascinating question. And I think that obviously is a big conversation that internally the Pacers have to have. It's a very quick conversation they have to have because, again, the draft is tomorrow, June 30th. So what is that, Monday, Sunday? That is the start of free agency. I mean, it is when you play this deep into the playoffs, obviously it's the goal. But it is amazing how quickly the offseason just hits you in the face. I'm pretty sure the Thunder have a draft pick in the first round tomorrow night they have to make. Today's their parade, and they're drafting someone in round 1 tomorrow.
Yeah, tough to be the Oklahoma City Thunder,
Well,
isn't it?
I mean, I'm not saying that. Let me be very clear.
I know.
It's just amazing how the NFL calendar is so different than the NBA calendar.
Would you like to venture a guess of who Vegas thinks the front runner in the East is next year?
Cleveland.
Yeah, I would
Yeah,
guess
Cleveland.
Cleveland.
Cleveland and New York, not too far behind.
And
By the
is
way-
Orlando up there? at all?
Orlando is the 3rd best odds in the Eastern Conference.
So let's put some context there. The Knicks are going to have a new head coach, and the Cavs are going to be without their starting point guard to start the season because he had toe surgery.
And what
So-
has Cleveland won? And I say that, won on
Yeah.
a bigger stage. And Orlando is obviously incorporating a new player, and they have yet to win anything. So, yeah, it'll be a wild NBA season, I think, for the East coming up next
I did
year.
see someone mention like Philly if they're healthy, and I'm
Oh,
like, if
stop.
they're
Yeah.
healthy, please,
Yeah.
please.
Pacers
stop
have
that.
the 6th best odds to win the East.
Joel Embiid making it through a playoff run.
Lord,
Stop.
come on now.
Not going to happen. You talk about guys with don't want to put too much wear on those tires. They got a lot of wear already.
I will say I appreciate his participation in Team USA last summer because they don't win gold without him. So Joel Embiid, if you sacrifice your knee for the country, I tip my cap to you.
All right, coming up in a moment, we'll continue to talk about what's in store for the Indiana Pacers now that they came just one game short of an NBA championship and their best player is on the sidelines for 12 months. Where do they go next? We'll talk about it on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome into the Fan Morning Show. KBJB, Mark Dykton. I'm Jeff Rickard. And, guys, the Game 7 situation between the Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, KB, I saw, drew a little more than 16 million viewers, the most watched NBA Finals game since 2019 when the Raptors and Warriors played Game 6. So for all the people that were worried about that, you put something on the line, people will show up to watch.
This Game 7 of the NBA Finals, if you don't want to watch that, you probably just don't like basketball.
You're a loser.
Yeah, you are a sports loser.
I'll let Kevin take that away then. I don't know if I'll go that far.
Do you think how much of the Halliburton injury do you think played in? The ratings would have been even better had he been full strength.
Yeah, I saw. Actually, I think
it peaked at 9:45 Eastern. Yeah,
so actually, the Halliburton injury, I guess, didn't.
It would have been about the time they were coming out of halftime with Indiana having a 1-point lead.
I don't know what at 8:30 or something. So
yeah,
I try not to get too caught up in the old TV ratings. All I know is it was a great.
You don't own a TV company?
It was a great.
Where it actually matters what the ratings are, Kevin? Oh my gosh!
I think it was an excellent series, and I think the Pacers had an incredible run, and that's how I will choose to remember things, not what Nielsen is telling me ratings-wise.
Kevin Bowen is just his radio name. His actual last name is Kevin Xfinity, right?
Yeah,
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why.
Right.
That's why Kevin.
Valley Sports, actually, Mark.
That's why Kevin drags himself out of bed every morning for a radio show because he owns his own television network, right? That's how that works. But anyway, point being is it was fun. And again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean a whole lot, but it was fun to see a lot of the national talking heads talking about their takeaway from the entire 24-25 season is just the gutty, gritty Indiana Pacers run. And I do think people that hadn't paid attention to them a lot during the season and even during the beginning part of the playoffs, after watching them for a month, went, hey, this is a really good basketball team. Oh, by the way, we'd forgotten Rick Carlisle is a Hall of Fame coach. Kind of felt like people rediscovered that again, James.
I'm reading a comment in the YouTube chat. It says KB loves himself some Bally's.
maybe you should be in charge of Bally's, KB. That would work, wouldn't it?
But
If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, right? Isn't that what my mom taught me?
Yeah, I have long thought if you just give this app to a bored college student, they could get it figured out in one weekend.
So true.
But going back to your question, Jeff, yeah, I think Rick summed that up in his answer about Tyrese the night of Game 7 after they had lost. And he goes, one of the greatest things about this young man is that he had this crazy playoff run, but he did it as one of 17. And when he says one of 17, he's including all of the two-way guys as well. And for Ty, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I think Rick said something like, for him, it's always the team over himself. And you see that in his play. And I think the way he plays is also a way that makes you want to play more team basketball. Like, you ask any player at any level, if you play with somebody you know is going to pass you the ball, you're going to run a little bit harder towards the rim, play a little bit harder on defense because if I get a stop, I might get touch the ball on the other end. And so I think that Tyrese does a great job of, again, being the straw that stirs the drink and giving everyone an opportunity to feel welcome or special or have a chance to shine. That's what I kind of reflected on more of yesterday as well, guys, is the ability to look back at every moment throughout this run and identify where whoever was in the rotation had a chance to make an impact. I mean, I even go back to Game 6 against the Knicks when Thomas Bryant, of all players, comes off the bench and
corner three, baby,
was balling. And then having a chance, myself personally, to talk to Thomas Bryant about that moment, and he was telling me how great it felt to be a part of this, to be a part of this special run. And so if you go down the line of each player on this team, every single run, whether you're the $200 million player in Tyrese Halliburton or you're the guy who started to lead the season in the G League and Tony Bradley, they all have a story of when they contributed and when they kind of helped this team get to where they got to, which is Game 7.
One thing I do want to note on Halliburton is I haven't thought this universally. I certainly didn't think it about Victor Oladipo when he went down, with that quad tendon injury. I don't think this is going to cripple his game. As James pointed out, there is a long recovery, and I am not holding my breath for Tyrese Halliburton to be on the floor at all next season. But when I look at Ty's game, he is not some rim running, I am here to, dunk on 7-footers on a consistent basis. When you think about Victor Oladipo's game, for example, he needed to be Russell Westbrook-like. He needed to attack the rim with reckless abandon. He needed to be a guy that finishes through contact, finishes through bigger, taller guys, uses elite athleticism to make up for a lack of height. And he also was a streaky shooter. That is not how you would describe Tyrese Halliburton at all. He is an elite shooter. And again, he's not a guy that really lives at the foul line or lives with, needing to get downhill with elite athleticism. Obviously, all of that helps, and you want him certainly to be at full strength. But I don't think this is going to, he's 25 years old. I don't see this crippling him moving forward. It is a long recovery. I'm obviously not, just throwing that to the side. But I don't think this is something that, unlike as soon as Oladipo got hurt, I remember walking out of Gainbridge Fieldhouse, or probably Bankers Life back then, thought to myself, damn, he's done. His game needs
explosion,
yes,
quickness.
Exactly. Yeah. And Ty's game doesn't have to have it. Obviously, it's beneficial. But that is an aspect to it that I think is worth pointing out.
You know what else I thought about? With respect to the Achilles injury, Kevin Durant, as we know, is probably one of the most prominent athletes to have it and come back and be Kevin Durant. He is an amazing basketball player, now a Houston Rocket, which is also insane. But Ty had the opportunity, I would think, to get a little bit closer to him during the Team USA run last summer, and he will certainly have the ear of Kevin Durant when he's going through those hard days, the days where you feel like, man, I'm not making any progress, or I got to learn how to rear walk again, I got to learn how to do calf raises and toe, all these little things. He will have him to lean on throughout that process. I even thought about Jason Tatum, who he's close to as well. They'll go through this process together and kind of hit different milestones, different paces, because they got injured different times. But you will have someone in your world that you can vent to that will only understand exactly what you're going through. Because
him
in his
and Tatum
statement,
are close by all accounts,
exactly.
too.
And in his statement, he said something like, I think you read it, Kevin, where it's like there's more important things in the world than a torn Achilles. And that is true for 99.9% of the population. But for that special group, you do probably want to have a day or a phone call where you could just be like, man, this stinks. I know I make this amount of money. My family's good forever. I don't have the normal worries of the average American or whatever. But dang, I want to be playing basketball right now and I can't. And so I think that'll be good for him to have that sounding board where others can kind of tell him, hey, I felt the same way. And at least in Kevin Durant's case, I came out on the other side and I still was a great player.
I feel like there should be a group text chat just between those four, right? Damian Lillard, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, and Ty.
And the good thing about it
I don't know
is,
if Lillard and Halliburton see eye to eye.
Yeah,
maybe
no,
not, but at some point,
just to cover all the bases.
Doesn't that transcend things,
I
though, that
don't know
you're
about
going
that.
through?
We'll see.
The
But
Dame time celebration in Vegas.
Yeah, there's some
probably a
mutual
little different.
respect there, but I don't know if there's a lot of love there. But again, you can look at other players, too. This isn't how it used to be back in, the 70s, 80s, even probably the 90s, where you had the torn Achilles, and it's like, man,
I think as much as 2010, it's really changed.
Yeah, you've reached a point where it is a devastating injury, but it is not a career-ending, career-altering type of thing like we've seen in the past. And so I'm excited for him to kind of look at other people for inspiration. Like I said, Brianna Stewart had it happen. Kelsey Plum had it happen. They came back and were very high-level players afterwards.
Well, again, in their own building, the Pacers medical team is now, 8 and 9 months into watching James Wiseman and Isaiah Jackson go through those own recoveries, so they know firsthand. I mean, I think that I would assume will be valuable for them. James, you kind of hinted at it, leading off. And by the way, Rick Carlisle will join us here coming up in 20. You mentioned 1 of 17 for Ty. I think when we think back on this season, the game winners are obvious. I mean, those are the top of the food chain in terms of the memories from this season.
He had a game winner in the finals.
A game winner in the finals. Again, we go through all of them. If we like, hell, we go through the 4-point play where he's floating out of bounds against the Bucks in the regular season. If you couldn't pick a Halliburton moment, your favorite non-Halliburton moment from the season?
Probably the Neesmith explosion early in the playoffs where
Game 1, Knicks?
Yeah, he just kept raining threes. He made that game tying, forced overtime by Halliburton. He made it possible.
Right.
What do you think?
I would probably go, and I've said this, Thomas Bryant is my favorite pacer because he's the funniest pacer. So Game 6 against the Knicks.
You want Thomas Bryant.
Yeah.
You're done with Miles Turner. You want Thomas Bryant starting for the Pacers
No, I didn't
next
say
season.
that because, like I said, when I
You
say
want entertainment value. You don't care about basketball product.
when I say funniest pacer, it goes both ways. There's good Thomas Bryant, there's bad Thomas Bryant. But again, knowing the effort he plays with and just how, flamboyant he is with his expression and his love of the game, I really enjoyed Game 6 against the Knicks.
I will go with another Neesmith moment. I'll go with the tip dunk
Ooh,
against
yeah.
the
Yeah.
Cavs.
Yeah.
The lane violation.
Another moment that you don't get the Halliburton game winner on Ty Jerome without the Neesmith tip dunk. There was a regular season night where I guess Halliburton might have been out. Do you guys remember when Obi went off at Minnesota?
Yeah.
He had a couple of moments
it was
too.
like
Obi
That
did.
was the
Curry
that was
like-
the corner three from
Yes.
TJ
Yeah.
McConnell kicking
Yes.
it out. Yeah, I remember that.
That was a memory. I know we brought it up yesterday, but the Globetrotter harmony, and I guess Halliburton was involved on the play of him getting the steal against the Thunder, and Siakam's on the ground. He gets back up. They throw it to Siakam. There's Neesmith in the corner. And I would probably just add one more. The Game 3 McConnell-Mathurin. Those two leading you to victory in Game 3 of the finals at home. Both of them igniting the crowd, not only in the second quarter, but then again in the fourth quarter. I think those would all kind of fall into some non-Halliburton game winner moments. But for me, it's the Neesmith tip dunk, the just absolutely thunderous, where did he come from? Oh, my gosh. Was it Donovan Mitchell? Was that who was underneath him?
Yeah.
I mean, just the ferocious nature for which he finished that play, and didn't they review it or something? Like, just all of it was unbelievable.
My top 10, maybe top 3 might include the Halliburton no-look pass to Pascal and his posterized dunk.
Yeah, Pascal. Oof.
I mean, here's the point of the conversation. A minute ago, we were talking about Rick Carlisle said this is a team that goes 17. Like, Ty was one of 17. That's what was beautiful about it. We just talked about our favorite moments throughout the playoffs, and we mentioned almost a half a dozen guys.
How about
Think about
Andrew
that.
Nembhard Game 1 when he just went and one mixtape on SGA?
Yeah.
That was amazing. I was thinking, does this guy fear anything? I don't think he does, honestly.
But, I mean, look at that. We've at least mentioned a half a dozen guys already through this run.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get to 100 games into it, you're inevitably going to have that. I think the Pacers are kind of built more so to have all of that in there. Again, Pacers announced last night Tyrese Halliburton surgery in New York. Dr. Martin O'Malley, the surgeon for that one, he seems to be rather world-renowned, if I must say, just reading up on him. He's the Hospital for Special Surgery in New York. They are ranked the #1 orthopedic hospital in the U.S., according to the U.S. and World Reports. Team USA's doctor did Jason Tatum's Achilles last year. Anything in particular stand out from you guys about Ty's statement? Again, I thought it was extremely candid, extremely emotional, and if you had moved on from things, I would say don't go back and read that statement because you'll probably get emotional again.
I just love the fact that it clearly wasn't a canned PR-related thing. This was a guy probably on his phone from his hospital bed just letting you roll through all the thoughts and emotions he's been feeling over the last 48 hours or so.
You know what I was thinking? I was like, wow, I don't read too many of these Twitter blue statements that are, see more. I was thinking, all right, Ty, like, I'll do this for you, brother, and it was worth it. I think the part where he says, now that I've gotten surgery, I wish I could count the number of times people will tell me I'm going to, quote, come back stronger. What a cliche. LOL. This bleep sucks. My foot feels like dead weight, fam. But what's hurting most, I think, is my mind. Feel like I'm rambling, but I know this is something I'll look back on when I'm through this as something I'm proud of. I fought through. It feels good to let this bleep out without y'all seeing the kid ugly cry. So I thought that was Tyrese, peak Tyrese. Yes, this stinks. Yes, it's a cliche to say I'm going to come back stronger. Yes, I was ugly crying, but you're not going to see it. But there's still that indomitable spirit inside of him, and I just think that he kind of represents the underdog, the unconventional, the quote unquote uncool people, because he doesn't fit a lot of the stereotypical molds of an NBA star. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't a super high level high school basketball player. He didn't go to some blue blood program, unless you think that Iowa State is that or of some sort. And he has the funky jump shot. He's skinny. I saw somebody else in our YouTube chat yesterday saying he's got to lift weights, he's got to get stronger. And it's like, dude, he lifts weights all the time. He's just naturally skinny. It is what it is at this point.
And a lot of basketball players are just that way.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Garnett was a skinny guy, and he just was skinny his entire career. He was physical, and he was skinny. Reggie was the same way. But I think that he kind of represents just the unconventional basketball lover. And I was excited to kind of hear from him, from his own words, late last night when I saw that go off on my phone.
Yeah, it was one of those worth reading, and like I said, we don't see too many non-curated posts by a lot of these guys, unless they're just going off on some competitor or something like that.
Yeah,
so
we have someone else in our YouTube chat saying, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! You can't write the story of these playoffs without the James Johnson ejection in Game 6 of the NBA Finals," which is the most James Johnson moment ever.
Yeah, or James helping Tyrese off the floor, kind of being again big brother protector type thing.
Yep.
So. Every person that contributed to the Pacers this year, I think Rick is probably going to tell you, really made it worthwhile. I think that's why he mentioned 17, because he knows there are nights your two-way guy, just from a roster standpoint, you start to develop some trust in these guys, and you depend on the bottom of that roster sometimes, Kevin, for a lot of different things.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at biggest game of the season. Your two best players were what? Your 7th and 8th men, McConnell and Mathurin in Game 7. I mean, that's. Obviously the Halliburton injury contributes to the necessary need for those two guys. And so we'll see. It's going to happen very quickly now. They've got a decision to make on Miles Turner. I think there are leverage points on both sides of it that we can get into here. Again, the draft is tomorrow night. The Pacers don't have their first-round pick. Now, with the draft, you always see, we've already seen it. Drew Holiday's been traded. Kevin Durant has been traded. In the NBA, there's always fireworks. So do the Pacers all of a sudden find themselves in any way, shape, or form needing to adjust what that plan looked like? Because I think what the plan looked like Sunday morning, it might not have been blown up with the Halliburton injury.
Tweaked.
But you've got to re-ask those questions. You cannot just sit there and say, hey, that plan Sunday morning for the offseason is the same exact plan as we sit here on June 24th. Those questions have got to be asked. They've got to be, I think, critically looked at. Because I don't think it's just crystal clear. I don't think it's obvious. I don't think it's a slam dunk. Oh yeah, this is exactly what you're going to do. And a torn Achilles to your best player and him potentially missing all of next season, yeah, that doesn't alter anything. I think you'd be foolish, naive, and living in a world of not realistic or reality, frankly, if you choose to go down that path.
JB, I think the Pacers are going to be able to get about $22 million of salary cap relief this particular year because of the Tyrese injury. I don't know what they do with that. They'll probably bring in some kind of veteran on some stopgap type contract, I would think. But does that affect the way that they approach the Miles Turner negotiations, having a little bit more money for this particular year moving forward?
I'm not sure. You do have to apply for the injury exception. It's not a guarantee that you get it. But, yeah, I feel like this is a question for Tony East in the 9:30 hour of our show, depending on when we hear from him. But, yeah, I'm not so sure. I did read about that as well, Jeff, but that is certainly something where I'm like, we should probably lean on the Pacers experts for that one.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what they do, and I think we have a big conversation later on today, too, of where is the Miles Turner situation. He didn't have the greatest NBA Finals, but I don't think that changes how you look at him all that much, does it, James?
I always go with what are the alternatives? I hear people say this all the time. They're like, well, you can't pay him. And I will say this. It is certainly a logical thought to say, why would we go into the luxury tax for a team that will not contend for a championship next year? And for those who might be rolling their eyes, I don't know why you would, because they're not going to contend for a championship next year without Tyrese Halliburton. So do you pay the luxury tax and re-sign Miles for the 2026-27 season? I don't know if that's a wise move, and that's where I'm thinking I'm glad I'm not a GM. So it does affect some things, but just the raw situation without the Halliburton factor for a second, what are your alternatives? Like people say all the time, well, it has to be better than Miles. Well, what's better than Miles? He's the top free agent center on the market coming out. So everyone always has ideas about moving on from the guy, but I'm like, all right, well, what are your secondary options? Are they better than what you had? And I would say right now, no, they're not.
Yeah, and I think one more thing to add, too, on the Miles front. He has admitted this, and I think it's pretty clear. He's at his best with Tyrese. Well, now if you're taking Tyrese away for next season, how does that impact? Leverage points are on both sides of it. James is spot on. What are the alternatives? The Miles Turner camp can present that very easily to the Pacers. But the Pacers could counter and say, okay, who's got all this cap space to give you the amount of money that you possibly, would garner in a normal offseason? So that's an interesting one to, Rick last year when he came on with us this very day, he made it beyond abundantly clear the number one priority was re-sign Pascal Siakam. Will he go to that level?
I forgot that was a thing
About Miles Turner. And that was, that wasn't too much of a debate, I don't think. But he just wanted to reiterate.
But still, he could have left. I mean, he could have did whatever he wanted to.
Right. Obviously, the Pacers were in a great financial situation to give him the amount of money that they did. Is the Turner thing as big of a slam dunk as that? Because I think when you've heard Steven Simon, I know he's gone on with Jake a couple times, you've heard a willingness to bring back Turner. I don't know if we've heard the direct quote of, we're ready to dive 2 feet in for the luxury tax. Again, how did everything change on Sunday night?
All right, coming up next, Rick Carlisle, the head coach of the Indiana Pacers, stops by. We'll let you listen in on that. Look forward to hearing from him as we continue the Fan Morning Show, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
A good Tuesday morning to you. Another steamy one here in the Circle City. We greatly appreciate you spending time with us. And as usual, our next guest always makes great time for us on a weekly basis, sometimes twice a week during the playoff run. And we'll do it one final time with him here in the 24-25 season. That certainly was one the state will never, ever forget. He is the head coach of the Indiana Pacers. He is Rick Carlisle. Coach, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm just fine.
As we, I guess, inevitably we'll probably transition this conversation a little bit bigger picture, but if you don't mind, if we could look back just briefly on the final series, certainly ebbs and flows abound, and, you know, what happened in Game 7 will probably be what people will recall the most, but ultimately, what do you think was the difference in this series?
Well, I'll just start by trying to answer most of your obvious questions beforehand. I was on a long car ride last night, and at 8:49 p.m., I made a call to Tyrese. I knew that he was in surgery yesterday, and that at some point around that time, he probably was going to be coming out and waking up, and he answered the phone on the first half ring. And he said, "Hey, Coach, how you doing?" he sounded totally upbeat. And I said, "I'm doing great. How are you doing?" He goes, "I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be good." And as I looked at my phone, I saw that he had sent out a message on our group chat of him in the hospital bed, smiling. He may have had a thumbs up sign, and that was to, all the guys on our roster, which included our bench coaches. And so that was a very uplifting moment for me. I've had several players that have sustained this injury. JJ Barea sustained this injury when he was in his 30s. He was a point guard. He's a backup point guard. One of the best backup point guards, for me in history. Dwight Powell sustained the injury when he was in his mid to late 20s. We dealt with this with Isaiah Jackson and James Wiseman this season. Both of those guys have been back in the gym, and it was interesting. I talked to James Wiseman's agent yesterday, and James has been authorized to do his rehab with us, even though he's not on our roster this year, by the league. And I talked to his agent yesterday, and his agent said, "Look, the kid's doing great." I said to him, how's everything coming? And he said, "I did a 360 dunk today." And so, so amazing that Tyrese was out of surgery by the time, actually it was inside of 24 hours after Game 7 had begun. And so I can tell you that I feel very, very uplifted by the exchange with Tyrese on the phone, the message that he sent out, etc. It's a daunting thing, to go through something like that if you're the player. It's a daunting thing if you're a loyal fan base, if you're a great fan of the game, all those kinds of things, to witness what happened on television. And so very disappointed for the team that we weren't able to proceed beyond that moment in Game 7 without our full complement of guys. But certainly so proud of the effort. This team, I think we beat 3 teams in the tax, in the first or second apron of the luxury tax in the first 3 rounds to advance to the NBA Finals, which is, an amazing accomplishment. I mean, that speaks to, the magnitude of the level of togetherness that this group had. It speaks to the moments, the unforgettable moments authored by Tyrese and Pascal and the rest of our group. And so I received more messages during this run. I mean, this is going back to the second round, just randomly from people, just hundreds as we proceeded through this thing. People just so enamored and enthralled with what they were seeing, and so could not be more proud of a group, and could not be more grateful for our fan base for their undying support of the team and the franchise.
Rick, when you look at the run that Tyrese went on, the clutch moments, you said after Game 7, this is one of the best NBA runs you'll see in the postseason. Did you ever have a moment in your office, or maybe after the season now, I know it's been just ended, but when you were like, dang, I get to coach that guy who is doing this on this stage? I mean, NBA game winners are very rare. To have 3 of them in one playoff run, one of the finals is probably, one in whatever the number is.
Yeah, there are special players in the game. I mean, coaching Luka for 3 years was amazing. I mean, the thing was, just get him the ball, and he's going to make something amazing happen. And Tyrese became that guy in the playoffs this year. Dirk Nowitzki was one of those guys. Get the ball to Dirk. That was the 5-word phrase that we used often. Just get it to him. He's going to draw a double or triple team. He's going to find the right guy, or he's going to manufacture a shot that is going to be a clean shot and that is most likely going to go in. So yeah, I mean, the run that Tyrese had was, I can't even begin to tell you. It was just, it became almost, I don't know, kind of just a commonplace occurrence as we went through this. Really, you go back to the shot he hit during the regular season against Milwaukee, the 4-point play to win that game. A lot of the magic for this run began in that moment. And so very grateful for him. And I really want the fan base to understand this. The exchange on the telephone last night at 8:49 p.m. Eastern time was one of the most uplifting moments in my entire coaching career. So people should be very hopeful. This is going to be a long run, a long haul, a long road back. Obviously, very unlikely that he'll play at all next year. I don't think I'm speaking out of school, as a non-medical person. But this will allow Andrew Nembhard to step into a different role. That's pretty obvious, and one that he's proven very capable of. And T.J. McConnell was signed by ownership, and Kevin and Chad last summer to be with us, hopefully through the end of his career. And so, these two guys will have to lead us from that position. And I know that, Kevin and Chad will find other ways to get other help. But it's certainly a tough time on the one hand. On the other hand, we're all moving forward and looking ahead.
It's the voice of Rick Carlisle here as the Pacers, we put a bow tie on what is, again, a season that no one in the state will ever forget. You mentioned some of those unforgettable moments, certainly the 4-point play against the Bucks you brought up, obviously the playoff run, the historic finishes. I think back to a wild regular season game in Minnesota, Coach, where Obi Toppin just went off in that game. McConnell was spearheading a lot of it, too. You set the franchise record at Washington. I don't know how much reminiscing you've been able to do here in the first 36, 48 hours after the season ends. But any particular moments, stand out to you outside of, frankly, probably the obvious of so many of those comebacks?
I mean, there were so many, and I'm really not a reminiscing type person when it comes to this stuff, because everything is, everything in the past kind of is in the past. But this is a special year though, and I think it deserves note, on some of the stuff. Like, the game right before the All-Star break in Washington, and we were down 19 in the third quarter, and it was the second night of a back-to-back after a national TV game at home with New York where we didn't play well and lost, and we're about to go into an All-Star break, and somehow the team finds a way to get back to even at the end of regulation, get to overtime. Matherin had an unbelievable game. He had either 28 or 31 points or something like that. And that was another one of those moments where it was a resourceful group finding a way. You're going against the odds. I mean, how many times this year did our fans look at the TV and see what the ESPN bet odds were for the Pacers to win, a game when you're down 8 with a minute left, or whatever. And so there were some miraculous things, but you have to have those kinds of moments, and you have to have the kinds of players that can author those kinds of moments to have the kind of special year that we had. And man, to get to one game for everything was such a great honor and privilege. And I'm so proud of the effort the guys put forth. And I want to tell one short story here and mention somebody that I know, Mark Monteith, who's a longtime writer in Indy, sent me a text message at one point before Game 7, and it was a quote that he was aware, and Mark is a historian of the game, historian of the Pacers, et cetera, it was a quotation that Slick Leonard used before all 3 games where the Pacers clinched ABA championships on the road. The first one, I think, was 1970. That was in LA against the Stars. And then 72 against the Nets. And 73 was on the road against the Kentucky Colonels. And that was a Game 7. And I haven't gotten back to Mark yet, but I appreciated him sending this along because, you're looking for the right message to give a group of players, on a game day and right before you go out for Game 7. And so we showed a short video that kind of went a little bit viral, I guess, on Instagram that talked about the Pacers being in financial peril, Nancy Leonard and Slick Leonard doing the telethon, raising money to sell 8,000 season tickets to save the team. Miles Turner going and giving Nancy a hug after Game 6 of the New York series, etc. And then, as I got the team together, I said, guys, I'm gonna give you the message that the greatest coach in Pacer history gave to his team 3 times when they clinched on the road. And the message was simple: walk out there like you own the damn place. And our guys did that. And Tyrese, hit 3 threes in the first, 3 or 4 minutes, forced them to call the first timeout. And it was a moment where everybody was jacked and ready. And then Tyrese's injury happened and that made it tough. But we came in at halftime up 1 on the strength of Nembhard's 3. And the third quarter just they threw a hellacious third quarter at us, and the fourth quarter was an epic battle, and I was just so proud of the way the guys fought. But to come up short is so disappointing. I know that TJ McConnell apologized to the fan base after the game. I mean, I don't think there's a need to apologize. This group just gave everything that they possibly could, but once again, just so proud, so thankful for all the guys and all the support.
Rick, you mentioned last year that I think in this very conversation, you made it very clear that bringing back Pascal Siakam, re-signing him was clearly priority number one. I get when you make a run this deep, transition to the offseason seems like a pretty difficult thing to do so quickly with the draft tomorrow and free agency starting coming up here in less than a week. What would you kind of view maybe priority number one here as you guys do transition to the offseason?
Well, I know where you're going with this. I mean, this is a Miles Turner conversation, and I don't think it's any secret that the franchise at this particular moment that is the number one priority. I don't know anything about money or numbers or years or any of that kind of stuff. But Miles is a very important part of what we've done here, what we've been doing. He's a very, very important part of the history of the franchise, certainly over the last decade. So I know that'll be a big topic, I'm sure. And I'm not privy to every little conversation going on there, but Miles is a very important part of what we're doing, and that'll be a big thing. And we get the draft, I guess, tomorrow, and I guess it's tomorrow and Thursday. And so the fact that we traded our pick this year to get our pick back next year is pretty amazing foresight when you consider what happened to Tyrese, and the fact that next year there's certainly a chance that will be a higher pick, and it's good to have that in our pocket. So look, we have great people that are making the decisions in our organization, starting with Mr. Simon and Kevin and Chad, and so I've never been more confident about the future of the Pacers, and I'm very certain that Tyrese will come through this with flying colors.
Rick, you mentioned that Tyrese plays as if he's one of 17, and you can look down the roster at each guy having a moment. How gratifying was that, perhaps, to have a team that was so uniquely built, and maybe not through your eyes, but through the eyes of the rest of the NBA, and to have each guy have a moment, especially in these playoffs? I mean, Thomas Bryant, Tony Bradley was telling me, hey, I was in the G League, and now I'm in the NBA Finals, and I'm getting minutes, and I'm contributing. So what was that like from a coaching standpoint, to know that it wasn't just a cliche, we need all our guys, but literally every guy had an opportunity?
Yeah, this team, in a very big way, I think is symbolic of the changing nature of roster construction in the NBA. This has gotten away from the approach of trying to build a super team with two or three superstars. This roster is built on depth, skill, obviously two great players in Halliburton and Siakam, but very much on a group of guys that star in their roles on the team. And we have to be deep. We have to be two or three deep. I mean, what you mentioned about Tony Bradley is a great example. I mean, just think about it. I mean, Miles Turner had some hugely important moments, in stretches in these playoffs. I don't know. I mean, do we definitely get to the NBA Finals without Thomas Bryant in Game 6 of the New York series? The guy goes in there and hits 3 threes. Tony Bradley steps up in the Cleveland series, in the New York series, and gives us consistency, with the rebounding element and a settling presence, at the 5 position. And when Tony goes out after hitting the deck in in that fast break play in the New York series, Thomas is now back in the mix and he's ready, and so it's just, it really embodies, what Indiana basketball is about. It's about the team. It's about every corny thing you can think of, the movie Hoosiers, all that stuff. And, to be a part of a run that really reflected so much of the values the state of Indiana, the city of Indianapolis, and how we view the game here was such a great privilege.
You mentioned all the corny stuff, and I'll get cornier. We had a chance to see, Reggie Miller and several other Pacers luminaries. Steven Jackson came back, Metta World Peace, Ron Artest. And what was it like to see sort of that side of it, where you have every era of Pacers basketball, even, going from Nancy Leonard and the Save the Pacers telethon to the present day Pacers coming together throughout this run? And was there anybody you heard from or saw that surprised you along the way?
Well, I heard from so many of them, and Reggie is just, I've just been so close with him over the years. I mean, when I was still playing back in the late 80s, I actually played in a summer league game in the LA Summer League with Reggie Miller in 1985 or 86 or something like that. And we just think about it. I mean, and so I'm obviously older and everything, but when I went to the Pacers as an assistant with Larry Bird, I worked very closely with Reggie, and then when I came back in 2003 as the head coach, he was doing everything possible to set the table for the future of the franchise, and to be able to turn it over to Jermaine O'Neal, Ron Artest, Steven Jackson, that group, and he just he did everything with such great dignity, and such great loyalty to the fan base. And so, I mean, he's the number one guy to me. And at halftime, he was back in the hallway with his son right outside of our locker room, and with a very somber look, and very concerned about Tyrese. But the hugs that I was able to exchange with Reggie Miller, he sat with my wife Donna and my daughter Abby at Game 7, and the hugs he exchanged with them pre and post game. I mean, this stuff is so meaningful. I saw Steven Jackson at Game 6, and he's a guy that I go so far back with, and we went through so many things together when he was in Indy. Jermaine O'Neal was sitting courtside. Jeff Foster was texting me constantly during the playoffs. Austin Crozier, Travis Best. I mean, Mark Jackson was sitting there. I heard from him a lot, and just was so appreciative. You could feel the support, of these guys. And then finally saw Rick Smith after Game 6 in the hallway. I had not seen him since I've been back this time, and just had a great visit with him. And of course, his daughter Jasmine works for the Pacers with Karen Atkinson for our player relation group, and she's amazing. So, yeah, I mean, there's been so much, and it's been such a great feeling. I'm so disappointed that that things just kind of happened the way they did, and we didn't have the ultimate opportunity to finish the job. But in Slick's memory, and with great appreciation for everything that Slick and Nancy did, and Donnie Walsh and Larry Bird did for the franchise, and the Simon family, man, I'm just so proud.
Rick, we really appreciate your time. I did want to add just one or two things before we close things out. For those that obviously watched plenty of Pacer games this year, particularly the postseason, you had that drive and dish pin on your shirt throughout. I know we've talked about it prior, but, with a listening audience here that is always very robust when you pop on Tuesday mornings, if you could share a little bit more about, partnering with Gleaners and the foundation that, you have started here for food insecurities and, nourishing food, really, for people in need. I believe this year you guys expanded all the way out to Terre Haute as well. What's kind of next from a drive and dish standpoint, and where can people check out more?
Well, the Pacers Foundation is a place where you can go. You can go to Pacers.com and find the Pacers Foundation. As you saw, I've been wearing a pin all year that was provided by one of our sponsors, Spoke Note, and Spoke Note's a really interesting company. They, when you scan a Spoke Note QR code, a video comes up. So if you scan my pin, you'll see a video of our operation, and we work closely with Gleaners. And so much of the challenge of food insecurity in Indiana, Indianapolis, Marion County, and the state of Indiana, it doesn't have anything to do with whether or not there's food available. It has to do with logistics and getting food to people in need. And so we have developed a charity that allows people to do that with an app that they apply for and qualify for, and they do it by ordering food in a very private and dignified way. And that's a really important aspect of this, in my view. And so we deliver to 3 different parks in Indianapolis. There's a lot of information out there about Drive and Dish online. We encourage anyone to check it out. I'm constantly looking for new partners. I've got some amazing people that are donors. Stephen Simon is one. Clay South from USA Upstar is another. Steve Smitherman from CareSource is one. The Pacers Foundation is another. I put in money. I'm talking to a few other people right now about the possibility of partnering. And, it's reaching out to Terre Haute. I think we're going to Muncie, and I think we're going to Bloomington. And the Simon, Mr. Simon, Herb, and Stephen Rails, our principal owner and our minority owner, have put up a $10 million to ensure that this is sustainable over the foreseeable future. And so, that will be like an endowment for this, but it also allows us expansion, and we're looking to grow it as best we can. And I'm looking for partners that want to be in this for the long haul like I am. And so, as I mentioned, we're talking to some folks that we feel have a great interest, and so we'll see where it goes. But appreciate you guys, bringing that up, and we're very proud of the charity.
Well, thank you for that, and congrats on that. We just sent out the link via our show account. I retweeted it for those looking for more on the Drive and Dish. Coach, and we'll end with this. Listener Jason from Irvington, he actually sent me this last week. He was at Game 6, and he asked that I would share this next time you were on. He goes, "Hey, Kevin, next time you have Coach on, win or lose, can you please thank him on behalf of Pacer Nation?" And I'll read this verbatim here. He goes, "Thank him for coming on the show and for revitalizing a team and rejuvenating a fan base and taking them to heights I'm not sure anyone thought was possible, for creating where were you moments series after series, for building a team that plays the right way, an exciting brand that encompasses this city, blue-collar toughness and teamwork, and no care for who the guy is on a particular night. No drama, no off-the-court anything, just all in on the game we all love. I want him to know how much we love this team and how much we feel a part of it." Again, that was Jason from Irvington. So, Coach, I know a few weeks ago we said thank you, but, I probably am saying thank you for so many fans out there for providing this state with one of the great sports stories, again, Indiana has ever seen. So, genuine thank you for that.
Well, that's heartwarming to hear. I mean, we have great people, and what he described is the Indiana way. So we will continue to push forward, in the same manner. And it's going to be a short summer, and we'll be back here soon.
Last thing, any off-season trip? You, Donna, Abby, you said it's a short off-season. Anything you're looking forward to off the floor?
We'll get to it, but appreciate you asking. But I'm sure we'll find things to do. I had an 8.5-hour car ride yesterday, and so I'm out of town and on my way to other places. But there's plenty of work to do, and as I mentioned, the Vegas Summer League is like, it's like a week and a half away or something like that, which seems ridiculous.
It is insane. Coach, we can't thank you enough. We really appreciate it. Enjoy the off season, and hopefully we'll talk again coming up in the fall.
All right. Take care, guys. Be well.
Thanks,
That
Rick.
is Rick Carlisle right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. Mark Dykton, I think that will be our morning shutdown. We'll recap all of it with you coming up the rest of the show. It is the Fan Morning Show here on a Tuesday.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Hope you all enjoyed the conversation with head coach Rick Carlisle of the Indiana Pacers just a moment ago with Kevin Bowen and James Boyd. I'm Jeff Rickard along with Mark Dykton. It is the Fan Morning Show, and we continue to kind of process all that has taken place over the last 9 months and over the last couple of weeks. The Indiana Pacers making it all the way to the NBA Finals. And guys, just curious, we'll start with you, Kevin. Biggest takeaway from your conversation with Rick just a few moments ago?
Well, I know we'll throw some clips at you the rest of the show. I mean, obviously the conversation with Ty from last night, and just the continued joy that Tyrese Halliburton continues to have, and certainly the darkest professional day of his life. I guess if people are looking for a news item out there, unlikely to play next season was the phrase that Rick Carlisle used. I don't think that comes as too much of a shock. It does sound like Miles Turner is a priority to bring back. How exactly that looks, remains to be seen. And then, James, I really enjoyed just him kind of running down the list of alumni players. That scene of Reggie Miller outside the locker room, I said it yesterday, it felt like a high school or college team losing on Sunday night. It felt like that emotional connection watching it. And the Reggie scene is one I will certainly never forget. I just don't think you get that in professional sports. And so I enjoyed hearing Rick reminisce about that. And Rick is unique in that, he obviously coached, so many of those players. You don't usually get coaches coming back for a second iteration. So, again, greatly appreciate the combo, and we'll definitely play some clips.
JB?
I enjoyed him telling us that he used to hoop with Reggie Miller. And I was like, it's just a slight little hint, like, yes, I used to get buckets too.
The man did play in the league.
Yeah, and won a championship, I believe, with the Celtics. So, but yeah, I think that a lot of it will be centered around Tyrese Halliburton conversation. He also mentioned Miles Turner remains a priority for this team, and I kind of appreciated that he just went out in front of it and didn't necessarily let us dance around the topic. He just went head on into the conversation about the future of the team, and he said that Miles remains a priority. I'm paraphrasing here, but he said he remains a priority for this offseason to re-sign, and didn't get into numbers, didn't get into specifics, but that was certainly another newsworthy item, I would say, Kevin, from the conversation. And then, again, just, him telling us that it felt like Hoosiers I was like, yes. I had like a fist pump in my spirit, because I'm glad he said it, because it certainly felt like that. I'm like, at some point, you got to be thinking, what kind of run are we on? Mm-hmm. And it was cool to hear his perspective on it, because he would not go there, as you know, Kevin, when they were in the middle of it.
I appreciated the conversation where he was harkening back and he was talking about Mark Monteith and Slick, and talking about, hey, Slick would tell you, just go out there in Game 7 on the road like you own the place. And to be honest with you, up until Tyrese got hurt, and really even through the entire first half, Indiana Pacers, they were not intimidated at all or on the back foot at all.
Yeah. Our guy, Marcus Thompson, he wrote this, I think, great humanizing piece on Tyrese Halliburton after Game 7. He was there in the building. And Marcus wrote that it was a heist, and Tyrese showed up basically to rob the place. And that's what it felt like, because you had
the most innocent-looking robber of all time, Tyrese Halliburton.
Not wearing the president's mask.
But this is the
Hollywood
thing,
would be like, wait, he's here for the acting role?
But this is the thing about Tyrese, though. And I think it's similar with Steph Curry. You get the babyface guy, and, he's light-skinned or whatever people want to say. He's a killer. And those first 3 threes go down, and you're thinking, oh, boy. And you could feel it. I mean, even through the screen.
And he was chirping.
I was thinking, everyone in that building is like, is this dude going to steal our championship from us? Because he was thinking, I'm not here to just, give this valiant effort and try to, play. And, I'm out here, but I'm not really contributing. He was like, no, I'm out here to kill everything I see in front of me. And that's what it felt like early on. Because when he made the first 2 threes, I'm like, oh, man. Misses the third. They get the offensive rebound. He steps back even further for the fourth, no hesitation, and swishes it. I'm like, oh, it is on. He had 9 points, I believe, in 7 minutes before he got injured. So, again, they were right there, precipice of history. It ends in devastating fashion, but I loved hearing Rick's perspective just on how everything unfolded from start to finish.
It was a lot of fun to listen to, and it's been a fun season, and we'll talk about it all, and we'll talk about all the things that Rick said, and we start to look ahead to already the NBA draft, as Rick brought up, is tomorrow and Thursday, and then the Las Vegas rookie, I call them rookie camps, but the summer leagues are coming pretty quickly right after that, and then we go right back into basketball not too long beyond that. So that's the one thing about making a deep, deep run, man. You don't have much time to take a breath, and it was fun to listen to Rick catch up there. All right, right now, a little bit of business to take care of. Mark Dykton, people are looking for something to do tonight. You like soccer? You like women's soccer? Indy 11 women are playing up at Grand Park tonight, correct?
Correct. Taking on Louisville FC, 7 p.m., Grand Park. Pair of tickets, 317-239-1070. First, fast fingers. I'm calling the shots.
There
fast
you go.
Fingers.
Mark, got a lot of work to do during those breaks, Mark Dykton. Let's get it going. 239-1070. You want to go see the Indy 11 women play later on tonight, do that. We also have some men's tickets to give away a little bit later on today as well. Family 4-pack there. More on the Pacers, where they head in the offseason. Some other thoughts coming your way next on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The month of June brings some greatness from Universal Windows Direct. It is hot. Boy, breaking news. Thank you, Kevin, for stating the obvious there. Your energy bill is going to feel it here. Your AC unit's been stressed, and the efficiency of your home matters a whole lot with that energy bill, and what contributes to that are windows. And you need to make sure you got the best in the business, and that is Universal Windows Direct. And here, as we close out June, they have got a free in-home window and energy assessment for you, so you can really see how much you could be saving. It's pressure-free, super helpful, and honestly, pretty eye-opening. Also, payments as low as $99 a month and no interest for an entire year. Again, that's universalwindowsdirect.com. That would be the website, the phone number, 317-659-7574. Universal Windows Direct, ready to help you out from an energy efficiency standpoint and get that assessment for you here in June. And again, no interest and no payments for an entire year, or payments as low as $99 a month. UniversalWindowsDirect.com, and that phone number one more time, 317-659-7574.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Boston is having a resurgence. I love this song here, but they were using More Than a Feeling during the NBA Finals on ESPN Radio. So how about that? I dig that music. It's a lot
feed
of fun.
that East Coast bias somehow. Like, well, the teams aren't in. Let's play some songs.
The songs are great, though. It was great listening to Rick Carlisle a little while ago here on The Fan. We'll hear some of, if you missed it, we'll hear some of his comments coming up after the top of the hour as well. Either that, Tony East, we're trying to get him on for 9:30 this morning. He was going to be on at 9, but we'll see how it all breaks out in the morning. In the meantime, we continue to talk about Mark and this Indiana Pacers team. And obviously the biggest question mark, and Rick went right there too, talking about Miles Turner, talking about how important he has been. And it's interesting, I was reading a couple of articles in the last couple of days for people who really track salary cap and what other teams might be looking at. He could be looking at, his team is probably going to ask for about $40 million a year. The Pacers are probably more comfortable at 30. Maybe they're somewhere in between. But JB, that's just the going rate for a guy of where his stature is at this point in time. It's not crazy money in the context of all the other contracts that are being handed out these days.
Yeah, I mean, it's a supply and demand thing. He is the top free agent center on the market, and as you heard from Rick Carlisle, he is a priority to come back to the team. And I would think that Miles wants to stay in Indiana. He's been here his entire career and has, had some of the best moments of his career. Obviously, a lot of that occurred over the last 2 seasons, and so I know he had a rough finals, but the way it works in the NBA world and really sports world is, what is somebody willing to pay you regardless of whatever, social media might say. You have people saying move on from Miles or, get another center. The options are bare, and he means a lot to this team. And I think he means a lot, to your point earlier, Kevin, to how the team plays. Now, is that different without Tyrese Halliburton? Absolutely. But assuming Tyrese is back, after next season and is available for 2026-27, do you want to have Miles around for that? I think that's ultimately what it boils down to.
You say options are bare. I think that's a great phrase to use for both parties. The options are bare internally. James Wiseman no longer. Torn Achilles. Isaiah Jackson, torn Achilles, a free agent. Thomas Bryant, I believe, is also a free agent. Even Tony Bradley. I think a team option maybe for Bradley. Yeah. But, there's no obvious, he brought up, very quickly when Halliburton, Nembhard and McConnell. There's none of that at center. But also for Miles, who's going to pay you $30 million, Miles? If you look at the teams right now, there's not a lot of teams with cap space. And if you've got cap space, are you really going to pay a 30-year-old center $30 million? I don't see him getting $30 million, obviously, on the open market. And, maybe that's a question for Tony East when he joins us. So I think it's like both sides have leverage, I guess is what I'm getting at. Options are bare for the Pacers to find a center. Options are bare for Miles Turner to find the $30 million home. He might find another, $20-ish million home. So that is an aspect that I am curious about. It is just, it is kind of wild to go back to Sunday night. Guys, you know how much Miles Turner played in the fourth quarter on Sunday?
In the fourth quarter? I'm going to say maybe 7-8 minutes.
Biggest game of the season. Miles Turner was on the floor for 46 seconds in the fourth quarter. 46 seconds. Came in there, one offensive foul, and he's out. While Chet Holmgren's making serious clinching plays.
Yeah, it was a rough finals.
So that's probably paying too much attention to the most recent aspect. He obviously was sick throughout this series, but what exactly it looks like and Miles coming back remains to be seen for me, because I think the other question you have to acknowledge is the Simons have always said what? Well, first off, the Simons haven't said much, I guess is probably where we should start. But they've always said, the very rare times they've really spoken on the record, we will dip our toes in the luxury tax when we're in a championship window. I'm paraphrasing, but isn't that kind of right, James, in what they've said? Are the Pacers in a championship window?
For next year, probably not.
I answered this yesterday, but no. I think the championship window was closed.
Altogether?
Yes.
So if it's closed, then why would they dip their toes into the luxury tax? And again, we're not talking about James Boyd money, Mark Dykton money, Jeff Rickard money. We're talking about the Simons. they've made it very clear we're only doing that if we feel like we're in a championship window. Well, if they feel how you feel and that window has been shut, then why would they do that? And again, I'm speaking from their standpoint.
Yeah,
because that's all that matters in this. We can debate it all we want, but at the end of the day, it is them spending the money.
Yeah, and
I am more optimistic that this group as a whole has still got a 3 or 4 year path.
No, I do not think that. Mainly because guys are getting older. They're not the Celtics. Like Jason Tatum's young. Jaylen Brown is young. I know Al Horford is old, but like a lot of their top guys are young. Pascal Siakam is not a young player anymore.
He's not
still
old yet.
But Miles Turner isn't necessarily a young player anymore. Like 2 years is a long time in NBA years. So, maybe I'm being negative Nancy here, and then just knowing how hard it is to win a championship and how you've only been there to the finals, that is, twice in 25 years, twice in 49 NBA seasons. Yeah, it's hard.
Devil's advocate part of it, James, would be what the hell is the Eastern Conference for the next 2 to 3 years?
That's kind of where I'm coming from.
Where is it Cleveland? Like, if you told me right now, name 5 teams in the East that are unquestionably better than the Pacers even next season, I can maybe hear you out, but, like, I wouldn't want to bet my own money on that. Like, I'm not – is Orlando really the third best team in the East, as Mark said with the odds? I mean, Mark, what'd you say? Cleveland 1. Was it Boston 2?
Yeah.
Or the Knicks.
I'm sorry, yeah, Knicks 2, and then it was the Orlando Magic were 3.
And then I think
Boston was 4,
and then it kind of
then
falls
the Sixers,
off a
then
little
the
bit.
Pacers. That was the top 6 of the Eastern Conference.
And so it just I mean, obviously it's a debate we're going to have a whole lot. We'll probably have it on the other side of this break, and we'll continue to have it throughout the week because I think is the biggest question. It's how much did you just lose 2 years of a championship window on one night?
And I think that's what happened.
Right. You lost the game, obviously, and then, Tyrese is unlikely to play next season. So that's the harsh reality of where we're at, and it's just the disappointing nature to the ending of what it was such a memorable season.
He'll be 27 when he comes back and plays, and I have no doubts about him getting back to an all-NBA caliber level. And, well, I'll say this. I don't have huge doubts. Now, there is some doubt just because of the severity of the injury. But then Miles is going to be 31. Pascal is going to be 33. TJ McConnell, if he's still here, is going to be 35. Like, again, it's hard, man. It is hard to sustain that. And when you lose an entire season, that changes a lot, which is why you see Boston doing what they're doing. Do they get rid of Drew Holiday if their entire team is healthy?
No.
Going into next season. So that's why I think the championship window might have closed, man.
I also have a key question for both you guys regarding that coming up in a moment. We'll also hear back from some of the things that Rick Carlisle had to say. If you missed that and you're just getting up and getting out on the road and you've been busy this morning, we'll play some of that back for you coming up in just a moment here as we continue on the Fan Morning Show, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Full on into the summer, driving in early this morning, the roads, especially some of the highways, at least the highway I was on over there, 69, just not much traffic going on. I think people are taking their summer vacation now. Certainly the Pacers are on summer vacation along with James Boyd and Kevin Bowen. I'm Jeff Rickard. But,
all I looked at was my thermostat, and it said 80 degrees at 5:45 in the morning. I'm like, get the hell out of here. What are we doing?
I know. I got up this morning, let the dog out. It was warmer outside than it was in the house.
Sweating my yams off before it's 6 a.m.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
As the kid growing up, I was always the first one to hit the thermostat and turn the air on. So when are you turning the air on? Because my parents, I was like, dang, you know, I get that you all work hard, but can you use some of these funds to keep us from sweating?
So I put the air on very quickly because I'm like, I don't like to be hot.
Okay.
My mother-in-law lives in Florida. Sometimes you can't tell the difference from the inside of the house to the outside. I'm like, can we turn the air on? Like, knock it down to 75. Give me something here.
Yeah, I'm not in charge of that. My wife makes all those decisions. Because even if I do something, it's going to get overridden quickly.
I'm about to say,
afterwards.
dang, you can't, man, because at some point I need some AC. I remember having a membership to Lifetime Fitness growing up, and our AC actually went out, and I was the only one who had a membership to the gym, and I was like, well, I don't know what y'all finna do. I'm finna go up here and sit in this AC at the gym and do nothing and play basketball or see my friends or whatever because it was that hot.
I mean, I remember just walking from our parking garage, James, here on the Circle, to over to Gainbridge Fieldhouse during the finals. And I mean, by the time I reached whatever, Pearl Street or Coaches, I'm dripping in sweat.
Yeah.
Like,
and we had like our blazers on and stuff. I'm like I need to be like in a
I'm like a
sleeveless shirt.
Apologizing to the security people as my sweaty palms are putting my phone in the little bucket.
If you missed it about an hour ago, Rick Carlisle, head coach of the Indiana Pacers, stopped by the phone lines here to talk to us about the end of the season and Tyrese Halliburton and all that stuff. And really, Coach came in ready to talk about things right out of the gate. Here's some of what he had to say right off the top.
I was on a long car ride last night, and at 8:49 p.m., I made a call to Tyrese. I knew that he was in surgery yesterday, and that at some point around that time, he probably was going to be coming out and waking up. And he answered the phone on the first half ring, and he said, "Hey, Coach, how you doing?" he sounded totally upbeat. And I said, I'm doing great. How are you doing? He goes, I'm going to be good. I'm going to be good. And as I looked at my phone, I saw that he had sent out a message on our group chat of him in the hospital bed, smiling. He may have had a thumbs up sign, and that was to, all the guys on our roster, which included our bench coaches. And so that was a very uplifting moment for me. I've had several players that have sustained this injury. J.J. Barea sustained this injury when he was in his 30s. He was a point guard. He's a backup point guard. One of the best backup point guards, for me in history. Dwight Powell sustained the injury when he was in his mid to late 20s. We dealt with this with Isaiah Jackson and James Wiseman this season. Both of those guys have been back in the gym, and it was interesting. I talked to James Wiseman's agent yesterday, and James has been authorized to do his rehab with us, even though he's not on our roster this year by the league. And I talked to his agent yesterday, and his agent said, look, the kid's doing great. I said to him, how's everything coming? And he said, I did a 360 dunk today. And so, so amazing that Tyrese was out of surgery by the time, actually it was inside of 24 hours after Game 7 had begun. And so I can tell you that I feel very, very uplifted by the exchange with Tyrese on the phone. the message that he sent out, etc. It's a daunting thing, to go through something like that if you're the player. It's a daunting thing if you're a loyal fan base, if you're a great fan of the game, all those kinds of things, to witness what happened on television. And so very disappointed for the team that we weren't able to proceed beyond that moment in Game 7 without our full complement of guys. But certainly so proud of the effort.
There he is, head coach Rick Carlisle, about an hour ago, talking about Tyrese Halliburton and his pride in the team and all that stuff. And Coach was terrific this morning, guys. Spent almost 30 minutes on the show this morning. Terrific stuff from a guy who's got to be incredibly proud of how this group responded all season long.
And I think you heard that, by the way. If there was a consistent theme, James, throughout, I did think it was an overall level of just, proud is probably a good word to use. I thought in all of his different answers, he somehow got back to that. And especially even in Game 7, the resolve that they showed there before kind of running out of fumes. But, to show that when Ty goes down, I think that was pretty obvious from Rick throughout today.
Yeah, and I thought it was nice to note his optimism after his conversation with Tyrese Halliburton too. And I don't know how much he's just trying to pick everybody up here in Indianapolis or whatever, because we know that Ty is going to be out probably all of next season. But it was a wonderfully optimistic note that he was talking about last night.
Yeah, I think the glimpse that we heard from Rick in regards to Tyrese was the Tyrese that we know, who is jovial and happy most of the time. And we always joke about when he's skipping down the court, you kind of know he's in the zone. And so when we see the skip again, we'll know that he's fully back. But I think also there is just a certain level of defiance that Tyrese kind of carries himself with, which he'll probably need throughout this rehab process, because it will not be easy and it will not always be, joy and sunshine and rainbows and everything's all good. And yes, he will be fine. We'll look up in due time and say, hey, Tyrese is back doing his thing, but there'll be some dark days too. But I think that overall, he just has sort of an indomitable spirit, a pretty, good levity that he carries himself with that will help him in times like this, because he's just not a doom and gloom person, period. I mean, the guy, he can't help but crack a smile at some point, because that's just how he is. And so he has a good group around him. I know his parents, obviously his girlfriend, other people who will be in his inner circle who will help him get through this. And, if you're looking for, I guess, silver lining, if you're Tyrese, and I'm sure he probably would agree with this, not to speak for the man, but I'm sure he would agree, it just makes the story better, because his story already is pretty incredible. Like during the finals, I was going back. This might have been in the lead up to the finals, Kevin, and I was like, man, I am so bored. I have nothing to do. I went back and watched his championship highlights from when he won his state championship in high school. And the same swagger and bravado and, borderline arrogance, the big personality that you see now is exactly what he had when he was 18.
Do you guys remember we had Steve Prom on as college coach?
Yep.
And Steve Prom at Iowa State, I think we had him on maybe after the Cavs series, I want to say. And he said the first thing he recognized watching Tyrese Halliburton play AAU was the amount of joy he brought to the game, to the point where the referees couldn't help but talk with him. That was one of the first things he noticed. And he's just like, damn, I need that. And out of your point guard, I think that is really important. Ty's used the analogy before. I'm like the mom. I got to keep everybody happy. For those that haven't seen the Halliburton statement, he released this late last night, just a snippet of it. This is post-surgery, again, as Rick Carlisle laid out there. Surgery for Ty in New York yesterday. And this is not some, canned PR statement of, hey, when a player gets hurt, let's release this to our fans. And, this is exactly what we would say, just insert player and fan base here. But Ty shared this. Indy, I'm sorry. If any fan base doesn't deserve this, it's y'all. But together we're going to fight like hell to get back to this very spot and get over this hump. I don't doubt for a second that y'all have my back, and I hope you guys know that I have yours. I think Kobe said it best when in the same situation. There are far greater issues and challenges in the world than a torn Achilles. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Find the silver lining and get to work with the same belief, same drive, and same conviction as ever. And that is exactly right. I will do everything in my power to get back right. Halliburton added a little bit later. And honestly, right now, torn Achilles and all, I don't regret it. I'd do it again and again after that to fight for the city and my brothers for the chance to do something special.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking to read and watching him just go through. Even in that one post, you could just feel all of the emotions and the thoughts and everything that's swirling around inside his head. It was pretty amazing to watch that because usually you just get a kind of a canned, quick paragraph.
Yeah, or a photo, but yeah, Tyrese brought out his pen yesterday and kind of gave me a run for my money when it comes to this writing thing. So I appreciated his candor and even just random. I found myself thinking of random moments where I'm like, this dude is so Indiana now. Remember when he first got here? He gave a shout out to Ashlyn Shade from Noblesville, I believe she was playing at the time.
Yeah, she played at Lumiere.
Yeah,
right,
they had won a state
UConn.
championship, and this guy's tweeting about, a girl in her junior year of high school, and he's like, man, she can hoop. I'm like, you just got here, and it's authentic. It wasn't like
He's
somebody
like
told him to do
showing
it.
up for the Newcastle semi-state.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if it wasn't during the Pacer season, I wouldn't doubt that he wouldn't do it, and that is so Tyrese. And so,
I think he went to the state finals one year.
Yes, because he brought it up, and he's like, yeah, that girl could hoop and blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, what? And I will say in true Tyrese fashion, like I said, he carries a certain arrogance about himself. He did not go to the Big Ten tournament when they were in town because he was like, I won't be caught dead watching that bad Big Ten basketball as a Big 12 guy. So I appreciate that from Tyrese.
He'll probably be in Mackey next year when the Cyclones go play Purdue next year in that non-conference game. The Miles Turner debate. And, I wanted to leave it open-ended for Rick. I know he, quickly took a little bit of a jab at me for the question, but I wanted to leave it open-ended. Just what does he view as the biggest priority of the offseason? Because last year at this time, when we had the season-ending convo with Rick, he went out of his way on different occasions to say Pascal Siakam re-signing him is 1,000% the biggest focus of the offseason. When that question was posed to him today, he eventually got to Miles Turner.
Well, I know where you're going with this. I mean, this is a Miles Turner conversation, and I don't think it's any secret that the franchise, at this particular moment, that is the number one priority. I don't know anything about money or numbers or years or any of that kind of stuff. But Miles is a very important part of what we've done here, what we've been doing. He's a very, very important part of the history of the franchise, certainly over the last decade. So I know that'll be a big topic. I'm sure, and I'm not privy to every little conversation going on there. But Miles is a very important part of what we're doing, and that'll be a big thing. And we get the draft, I guess, tomorrow, and I guess it's tomorrow and Thursday. And so the fact that we traded our pick this year to get our pick back next year is pretty amazing foresight when you consider what happened to Tyrese, and the fact that next year there's certainly a chance that will be a higher pick, and it's good to have that in our pocket. So look, we have great people that are making the decisions in our organization, starting with Mr. Simon and Kevin and Chad, and so I've never been more confident about the future of the Pacers, and I'm very certain that Tyrese will come through this with flying colors.
And again, I like the thought there that he had about there's a great likelihood that we'll be picking a little bit higher next year than we otherwise would have been. They got that going for you.
He's being honest because and there's no way they could have known that Tyrese would have gotten hurt in Game 7, but hindsight's 2020, and that move was probably a little bit more savvy now that we have the full context and the full, injury and things like that. So, yeah, that's crazy that they have to get ready for the draft, and he's probably going to get on the phone with somebody who gets picked in the second round in a couple of days and welcome him to Indy and think about, summer rosters, and it never ends. But that's your reward for applying to the literal last day of the season.
One question I do want to ask Tony East when he joins us here in about 15 minutes in regards to Turner. Do you look at the Turner money and do you say this? Let's go out and get JV version of Miles Turner. And then you take the rest of the money and you extend Benedict Mathurin.
Well, that was the question I was going to ask you
James
guys.
is rolling his eyes at me.
I didn't roll my eyes. I kind of widened them. Like,
can I finish my thought?
Yeah, feel free.
Mathurin next year will be a starter, right?
Yeah.
Mathurin starts. McConnell stays as the backup point guard. Nembhard slides over to the point guard spot. That's my assumption. What if Mathurin blossoms? What if he becomes, even a little bit more of a scorer? Are you trying to give him the contract like you did with Nesmith, like you did with Nembhard? Getting a little bit ahead of the game. And right now we look at Nembhard and Nesmith and think, oh boy, those are very good contracts. James, if you're worried about the championship window of Siakam and Turner going down the slope, does that mean Mathurin now is on the other side of the slope? And are you trying to get ahead of it a little bit and say, man, if we can get him under contract at a decent deal and he becomes a 22-point scorer next year, something along those lines, do you look at the Turner money at all and view it in that light? Of, hey, he wants $30 million. Why not get a center out there that's worth $15 million and then give some of that money to front load Mathurin's extension?
Two things. I think what's underrated about Miles is the spacing he provides. So when you say go get another center, can he shoot? Because
Trust
if he
me,
can't shoot,
I said JV version of Miles. I mean,
I hear
I'm not
you.
in here to poo-poo Miles Turner.
Yeah, I'm like, if you can't shoot, that changes a lot of your offensive flow. And then the reason why my eyes got big with Benedict Mathurin is that, do you feel as confident in his potential or even just his contributions to your team as you do with Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith? Because as we know, Benedict Mathurin is very talented. There are moments where when he goes to the basket, I'm like, that is D-Wade. There's other moments where I'm like, what are you thinking? And I don't know if the latter, if those moments, you can necessarily ignore them and reward him with a contract extension just yet. And if they did, I wouldn't say it's like a horrible decision, but I think that would be a bigger risk, honestly, than what we saw from, pre-extension Andrew Nembhard, pre-extension Aaron Nesmith. The up and down nature of Benedict Mathurin's game kind of gives me a little bit of pause. Like, do I want to invest in that already? But in theory, you are supposed to at some point, right? He was the number 6 pick. You're not supposed to let the guy walk. But I almost feel like, could you do an extension during that season if he shows you some promise? Do you have to do it right now in the offseason, I guess is my question.
Yeah, that was the question I was going to ask you guys moving forward. How much do you count on the growth, the maturity, the rounding into everything we think he can be, Benedict Mathurin? Because, man, as you mentioned, yeah, there are a lot of moments where you kind of like say, what are you doing out there? But there are also a lot of moments where you look at the guy and go, man, he can do some things that a lot of other cats can't do. He can score. Like, he can flat score when he gets
I know,
it rolling.
but I need you to defend.
Well,
I need you to be engaged. I need you to do all these things if you want this money and this role in this team.
And I think that's where the fascinating debate is with Mathurin. And by the way, Turner, from a financial sense, maybe we have to be sign and trade. I know that just because you don't pay him, all of a sudden the money just pops up for you. Again, Tony East will hopefully answer some of these questions in a few. But I think one thing to add about Mathurin, and this is universal, and it's probably a good reminder with the draft tomorrow night. Yeah, I was listening to Pat Knight on with Jake a couple weeks ago. Always really enjoy that combo, by the way. I know Jake's kind of done that every couple months. It's always a good combo. But Pat Knight, who scouted Mathurin and scouted many of these Pacers players during the draft process, he made it very clear to Jake that too often in the team building roster construction process, we don't talk about enough of what the guy can do, and we sit here and endlessly nitpick what he can't do.
Rick Carlisle said something very similar right before the finals, I believe, in regards to Tyrese Halliburton. So I'll just continue your point, but yes, that is something I might have overlooked, honestly.
To me, Mathurin's a poster child of it. All we do is nitpick what he can't do. Did the dude just score 24 points in Game 7 of the NBA Finals? Was the guy your third leading scorer throughout this final series? To me, way too often we overlook that. We take that for granted. On a team that no one gets the foul line, he lives there. and we sit here and nitpick, man, I wish he was a little better defensively. I wish he was, I wish he made the extra pass. I wish he wouldn't poke Lou Dort in the eye when he's walking to the foul line. Well, the dude also is a bucket getter and showed that he can do that on the biggest stage on a night when none of your starters were delivering for you. It was Mather and McConnell as your two scorers. So I think that is a reminder. I get that at times it looks a little awkward. It looks a little clunky. But let's remember, what can he do versus endlessly nitpicking what he can't do?
I want to see the faces of those guys.
Well, that face is James Boyd for this one, but the other ones I was
What
thinking
was the athlete that had one of the zoomed-in, big-eyed pictures lately? I was trying to think of it, Mark. I mean, James's eyes, damn.
They got saucer size.
Pascal Siakam's eyes went to the back of his head the other night. James's eyes, it looked like they're going to hit Jeff in the side of the face.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, man, again, I heard everything you said about Benedict Mathurin, but you pay him that money. Not that, again, you want to pay your guys, but what would that mean? And will he be good enough to have earned it?
To be very clear, I'd be stunned if that hypothetical I threw out there happens, but it was just a thought that came to my head.
All right, let's check things down and let you know what is happening right here, right now.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Tyrese Halliburton waking up in a New York City hospital today after having surgery on his Achilles yesterday. Looks like the time frame to return, like most Achilles tears, about 12 months. Minimum. Dr. Martin O'Malley, the best in the business, KB, taking care of business for Tyrese yesterday.
Yeah, I know nothing about this dude other than what I read about him, but yeah, he seems super accomplished. Did the Jason Tatum surgery.
Well,
Isaiah
here's one
Jackson,
for you, Kevin. He
James
did ankle
Wiseman.
surgery on Tiger Woods. So
There you go. Say no more.
Yeah.
Tyrese Halliburton will be back by opening night after I heard that.
So Tyrese Halliburton, the Indiana Pacers, taking a deep breath after a completely glorious run through the NBA Finals, ending up the way it did in Game 7, though. And so much of this show has just been devoted to just what an amazing run the Indiana Pacers had, and will continue to celebrate that team today and moving forward. Later on tonight, the Indiana Fever return to the floor. They continue their West Coast road swing. They will be in Seattle tonight. 10 p.m. tip-off, 9:45 the pregame show here at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. And they'll be trying to snap a two-game losing streak, and hopefully, JB, Caitlin Clark kind of gets out of her three-point shooting funk tonight.
Yeah, it'll certainly be a challenge for her. I think a lot of her shots are just tough shots sometimes. And I know we fall in love with the range in which she shoots these threes, but maybe some conversations need to be had about not necessarily changing her game, but just looking at, hey, what are just good shots for you and realistic shots that you can put down at a good rate? And what's crazy about me saying that is that despite her shooting slump over the last two games, I think it's 1 for 17 from three, she's still shooting like 35% from three.
Including that run.
Yes, including that.
And that means missing the first several or a bunch of games in the middle there, too. So there's not a huge 1 out of 17 would impact that number hugely.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it won't be easy tonight either. The Seattle Storm are playing pretty good basketball. Nneka Bumake is out there playing ball as well, Hall of Fame here in the future. So, got to get ready for tonight.
Skylar Diggins action, Erica Wheeler action.
Yeah, Skylar Diggins, Indiana,
Mackenzie Holmes, a lot of local flavor on the Seattle Storm.
Speaking of the WNBA, the first set of ballot results are out for the WNBA All-Star Game. Will take place here in July in Indianapolis, and Caitlin Clark, no surprise, is the number one vote getter throughout the league. But, man, her effect, KB, 8 Fever players ranked inside the top 40 and 3 inside the top 10 in voting right now.
Yeah, it's
Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell doing well as well.
It's like the Yankees or the Chiefs or, whoever you see right now. So, yeah, and the DeWanna Bonner situation's a bit odd to me. She's been away from the team now for 2 weeks. I didn't think the fit on the court was going very well. She's not used to coming off the bench. That has not been what she's done here in the last 10, 12 years of her illustrious career. I'm curious how that will play out.
All right, Major League Baseball yesterday. Reds continue to play well. They beat the Yankees by a score of 6-1. Ellie De La Cruz continues to be Ellie De La Cruz. A home run, a triple, 3 RBI. Meanwhile, tough streak for the Cubs right now. They lose in St. Louis by a score of 8-2. Mark, they'll get it back soon, right? Cubs will be bouncing right back.
Shota Imanaga expected to come back from about a month and a half missing later this week. So hopefully,
pitching matters.
Yes. So hopefully Hopefully they'll
I'm
get
learning.
the bats swinging some more.
All right, before we get to Tony East in a moment, anything else you want to throw in, KB? We all good right
Drew
now?
Holiday to the Trailblazers late last night. Anthony Simons from Portland to Boston. For those that aren't maybe NBA diehards, Simons is a great young scorer. Can average 20 a game in a hurry. So Boston, of course, retooling some things with Jason Tatum likely out for next season. So Kevin Durant, Drew Holiday traded, and we'll see who else with the draft coming up tomorrow night.
We'll say Lauren Holiday is the wife of Drew Holiday,
Correct.
Ben Davis grad. And
My
we know how
dad's
great she
favorite
is.
student
No
in
kidding.
his years in Wayne Township, Lauren
Wait,
Chaney.
did your dad ever teach you?
He did not.
Okay,
no,
I was
no,
about to say,
no,
dang,
no.
dad is
Even-
like,
even if
my
he
son was a
did.
horrible student.
Even if he did, those rankings remain
Correct.
unchanged.
Correct.
Respect.
Unchanged.
Kevin,
Loves himself some Lauren Chaney.
Kevin, ineligible to be in those rankings, I think. That's how that works right there. All right, Tony East coming up to talk about the Pacers next and what could be in the immediate and long-term plans for this team as we continue. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Hope you're having a happy Tuesday.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Hope your Tuesday's starting out okay as many of you get ready to go into summer vacation or summertime mode. We certainly have come to the end of the NBA season, and we took it as far as we could possibly go, all the way to Game 7 of the NBA Finals as the Pacers had, I think, a glorious season, and it ended the way it ended. We just have been talking about Tyrese Halliburton and his situation at this point in time. But somebody who's been covering the Pacers day in, day out for a while now joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline, Tony East, into the morning show this morning. Tony, thanks so much for being here with KB, JB, and myself this morning. I know you've had 24 hours to kind of look at everything and take a deep breath. How are you feeling about the Pacers this morning?
The same way I felt, like right when the game ended, honestly. Just a tough way for a magical season to end, right? I hope everybody feels the same way and can take a deep breath and remember how fun the playoffs were before that last game. But also, I mean, that's just – sports can be cruel, and that was the most unfortunate way possible for a series to end.
Tony R. East on Twitter. We greatly appreciate the time. I know it was a lot of travel for you getting back here to Indy. Listen to you this morning. You mentioned near the end of your pod you feel like people are missing the point a little bit in regards to Miles Turner, maybe the Pacers offseason as a whole. You care to expand on that?
Yes, I mean, everybody's saying, oh, the tax now matters again, and oh, should they actually be paying him now that next season's not? Okay, there's seasons after next season. Like there's many seasons after next season that the Pacers would like to be good in. So that's the first point that I think people are missing. Like, what is the point of this? If the second someone gets hurt, they just have to punt their whole team into the sun. Obviously, they have to reconsider how they pay players and things like that going forward with Tyrese Halliburton's injury. But the other part is, okay, you don't pay Miles Turner because you only think next season is the only season left in Pacers history, and you don't want to pay the tax for some reason. You don't want to pay the tax for some reason as a fan, which it's not your money. Who cares? Okay, what are you doing instead? You want a worse center? Like, how does that help the Pacers next year or beyond next season? Like, what does it matter? Like, that is also a reason I don't understand what people are thinking. And how are they ever going to have that salary slot again? They need that salary slot to eventually make a trade or eventually, just have someone of that quality at the center position. It just seems like everybody saw an injury and went from point A to point B of, well, now they can't pay the tax, so Miles Turner's gone. Like, they miss every other point involved with that conversation. And the reason everybody is so focused on Turner is he's the only significant free agent for the Pacers, and he did not play well in the finals. Like, that's undeniable. And so that became such an obvious part of the conversation, but he had a good regular season and good rest of his playoffs. And for some reason, everybody just took it and ran that meant it's over and that they shouldn't keep him. And I went the opposite direction. I thought it was more important that they at least made a point to find a way to keep him. I mean, even if it means being more creative, because next year is just going to be different now, and they're going to have to find I think they're going to have to do something different now than what they maybe thought before Game 7. But keeping Miles Turner seems just as important as it did before that game to me. And I was so surprised by the reactions.
Who has more leverage? Turner, because there's no centers that are good out there, very good out there. Pacers have no centers really on their roster, or the Pacers because no one out there would pay Turner the money that the Pacers could pay him.
Yeah, if Turner doesn't want to be on the Brooklyn Nets, I think the answer is the Pacers. The Brooklyn Nets will have cap space, but they have Nick Claxton, and I don't know why they would be tripping all over themselves to offer that money to Miles Turner. So I think if you want to keep an eye on the leverage battle, watch teams that could have cap space. Like the Grizzlies could have like a tiny bit, in theory, not enough for Miles Turner, and they lost some, for example, when they did that Desmond Bane trade. Like if the Pistons take on money before free agency starts, or the Nets take on money before free agency starts, or any sort of move like that, that would be a win for the Pacers in the leverage battle. So it's probably close right now, honestly. But the only team that can pay Turner what I would think the market values for him should be is probably Indiana or Brooklyn. And again, unless Miles Turner wants to be a net, I think that is slightly advantage Pacers. But honestly, at this point of a 10-year career, leverage is so it matters obviously, but I think the relationship part is just way more important than that. And ending up at about market value will be pretty easy if they both want to stay together, obviously.
Tony East, Locked On Pacers, joining us here on the Fan Morning Show this morning. We've had some discussion about this. We'll continue to have discussion. What do you make of the long-term prospects of Benedict Mathurin? How good can he be?
Man, I mean, I think he can be great. He's a great player. He's the only guy that can, consistently get to the foul line on this Pacers team. Obviously a wonderful scorer, but, the question to expand with his career is how good can he be on the Pacers, right? Because clearly there's a level of fit that has not always been there, with the team that plays 0.5 ball and tries to keep everybody moving and the ball moving at all times. And he's the only guy that at times that it doesn't seem like he's as good at that as the rest of the team, even though there are games where he stands out so much because of the things he does differently that make him so talented, right? And, every time everybody talks about fit with him with the Pacers, they talk about him adapting his game to playing the Pacers' way. And that's fair. Like him fitting into a system is important. But, I've always wondered if there's some level of the Pacers tweaking what they do when he's on the floor to help him, even though their system is obviously excellent and has gotten them to a conference finals and a finals the last 2 seasons. But regardless, he obviously can be great, right? He's gotten better every year. He can guard. He can make shots. He can do things that no one else on this Pacers team can. It's just, can he really become the best version of himself on the Pacers? And, is it right for them to pay a player that maybe doesn't fit perfectly on their team or into their long-term plans when we are talking about now their financial reality going forward, right? And maybe they should. Like, he's very talented and could grow into something important. And, again, it's not our money. Who cares? But that is, I think, a more pressing question for their summer planning is, do they feel like that his fit with the team is worth continued investment in both this year and next year because he becomes extension eligible starting on July 1st? And that'll be an interesting conversation, I think.
I will say this. You keep saying, Tony, it's not our money, who cares? And I can use that for Miles and tell him, hey, man, by the way, Brooklyn is expensive. Compared to Indianapolis. I don't know if that's something that he doesn't have to care about. He's made a lot of money in his career, but just throwing that out there. But
and you have to live there.
Well, I mean, I've been to Brooklyn. Brooklyn is fantastic. I was about to say, I don't know about that. But I do want to say, Tony, what do you think of Tyrese's letter to the Pacers world and really just him spilling his heart right after having Achilles surgery in a fashion that only Tyrese can really pull off?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When I saw the tweeted picture, I thought I was about to be like every other athlete ever, and it was gonna say "I'll be back better than ever" heart emoji, and that's it. So one, very impressive that he came up with all that in a day, given everything that he's gone through since the first quarter of that game. But yeah, I mean, I like that he spent all the time to type out his thoughts like that. You don't always see that from athletes in a moment like this, where the reality of their life became very cruel very fast. And one, I appreciated just him explaining exactly how he felt in a moment like that, because we could see it, right? You never see a guy smack the floor and you don't know how they're feeling, but to have him type it out was revealing. And two, just the fact that he, as Rick told you guys, an hour ago, is surprisingly somewhat upbeat, I think says everything about him, right? Like, that is the Tyrese Haliburton experience. Every moment he's in, like, he takes it on with a smile and hits it with the right attitude, and I've always found that impressive about him at such a young age and a leader of a franchise. And so to be able to be like this and seem at least as upbeat as someone possibly can in like a life-altering, devastating situation, I thought was very revealing.
Tony, last one for me, and before I do share this, I want to say thank you for your coverage all year long. I think Pacer fans are beyond lucky to have you on the beat, and Fever fans. I should mention that as well. You do outstanding work, and I hope that you find some great stability in continuing to provide that coverage for us, because you deserve it, and selfishly, we would love that moving forward. Last thing, should Pacer fans care about the NBA draft at all?
Not really, no. I mean, they clearly, the Pacers didn't really care about it because they traded away their first rounder, and they had no room for a rookie to play or be in their salary situation. And getting their next year pick is now really huge after what happened in Game 7, right? So that was a fantastic trade. So no, not really. But I'll say this: like, if you are a tax-conscious fan consumer, at least keep an eye on what they do at pick 54. If they pick a point guard, be very squint your eyes maybe and think that they might sign that player to a real contract just because it's cheaper than a rookie minimum. But other than that, no, there should be no real care for fans about the draft.
Tony, have a great summer. Always appreciate you coming on with us, and who knows, we'll probably talk again soon.
Yep, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You bet. Tony East, Locked On Pacers, joining us here on the Fan Morning Show. We've talked a lot about the Pacers today. Summer is here. Things are going on. A chance for you to celebrate summer Saturday night at Carroll Stadium. The Indy 11 going to be taking on Birmingham Legion at Carroll Stadium. And I just so happen to have a family four-pack of tickets to give away if you're looking for something to do on a summer evening over at Carroll Stadium. Again, you love the Fast Fingers, James. Mark is all into the Fast Fingers today because he's doing a million things over there. 239-1070, number to call. First caller, family four-pack to go see the Indy 11 on the field at Carroll Stadium coming up on Saturday night. Always a good time. We'll do that next, and we've also got some closing thoughts for you as we continue on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Good morning and welcome to 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. If you missed any of our conversation with head coach Rick Carlisle of the Indiana Pacers earlier today, Mark will have that posted within the next 60 minutes or so. Right, Mark?
Posted now.
It's already posted. See, he's doing work while he's working. How about that?
But don't listen for another 5 minutes.
And multifaceted.
By the way, we are getting ready to host the Fan Invitational Golf Outing coming up in August, presented by Franciscan Health. It'll be Thursday, August the 7th. Tee time of 10 a.m. over at beautiful Legends Golf Club. You can hang out with all of us. We're going to be there. Jake's going to be there. JMV's going to be there. Look, it's not just about golf, and that's going to be a really fun time, and we all love doing that, no question about that. It's an opportunity to get together as a community and support the Franciscan Foundation. They just make a tremendous impact on their community, and you can help them do that. We're going to have a fantastic day on the course, so whether you're doing golf all the time like KB, a seasoned golfer, or you just want to go watch James Boyd swing the clubs. When was the last time you swung a golf club, by the way?
When I had to swing one during the closest to the pin challenge every year that we have for the Colts. But I actually will not be at this golf outing. I will be in Baltimore.
Oh, boy.
Because it's my job to cover the Colts. So, yeah, I'll be on the road.
All right.
Preseason opener.
We will be we'll be drawing you in during the broadcast anyway, one way or the other.
Hold it down for me.
But anyway, it's going to be out there. We're going to have a lot of fun. Thursday, August 7th, 10 a.m. at the Legends Golf Club. So get your clubs ready. Join us for a great event. Don't miss the chance to make a difference with every swing and go. Get all the information at 1075thefan.com. You can also read the latest from Kevin Bowen, who posts there regularly as well. And I know you've got a little bit of summertime coming up here before you get going for Colts camp later in July.
Posted a 53-man roster projection earlier this week. James, maybe you and I can dive into maybe a slight Anthony Richardson update I saw from down in the Florida camp area. You know, a popular time for players in their football camps here this summer. Maybe we can get into that a little bit tomorrow. Because Jeff, you said you are out the rest of the week. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm gonna try if I can get a later flight tomorrow. I'd like to come in and do some radio with you guys in the morning, but I'll be going to one of our other markets for a couple of days here at the end of the week. So, but looking forward to hanging out with you guys as much as possible. Until then, we had Rick Carlisle on, as I mentioned a moment ago. And before we head out, your biggest takeaway from all that, KB?
Well, selfishly, I'd like to talk for like 20 minutes about it because I think there's so much to take away. I do think the one-on-one sharing of story of him and Tyrese Halliburton last night, fans will really enjoy hearing that. So, as we said, that is up on the podcast. And then the Miles Turner news sounds like he is offseason priority number 1. How that looks remains to be seen.
I can't. It just feels like they're destined to stay together for his career, is what it feels like, James. And I'm on board with that.
I'm not. Things change very quickly in the NBA, so we'll have to see who's right or wrong on that front. 2 years is a long time in NBA years, which will be the next time that Tyrese Halliburton is healthy. But for now, you kind of have to take it just one step at a time. It's cliche, but it's true. You can't see the future.
Yeah, but you look at some of the other guys that are on the market. Like you're looking at Naz Reid, Brooks Lopez. What are you going to do at center?
I think Miles will stay, but I think the rest of the decisions, other players involved. But how long are you going to be gone?
I'll be back on Monday.
All right, me and Grant party at the Rickard house. Let's go.
You plan that. We'll listen to Jay.